And welcome to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, revolution.radio. My name is Monty Dean. This is Planet Collingwood Open Roundtable. Please join me for a bit of a chat. A big thank you to Why Not and the Y-Files and his crew. I only caught the last 15 minutes of it because that's how I roll. I have things to do, like feed the cat, well, give the cat food, let's be fair. If you enjoyed the last 2 hours, please go to the website, which is freedomslips.com and or revolution.radio, and donate what you can. At this point in time, according to my sources, we are $885.54. Interesting, 54 cents. I like that. Hello, May Street. Hello, chatters. Our goal is 2,000, and we're near the end of the month. So if you can spare a couple of shekels, please go. We'll share, and so we can continue sharing information on both Studio A and B. Oh yeah, that's good. And yeah, you got it right. I don't have Rona, mate. That's all right. I just got a cough. Once you've donate what you can.
Wow.
Yeah, easy, Tiger. Easy. I'm trying to be professional. It's French for something. Pop into the merchandising section, bit of swag, buy T-shirt, caps, onesies for the kiddies, and then pop into the chat room with hanging out with like-minded, like-hearted, and just liked people, beings. Some could be bots, hello Hammerhead, and some multi-dimensional co-creating beings on this planet to make the world better. Sort of. And as we've heard in the background, I've kidnapped John Z, or as they say in Canada, Zed. John, how are you, my friend?
Wow. Good up until the point where you said Zed. Just who says Zed? I mean, Zed is a zombie.
Hey, Bobcat Goldthwait threw his heart and soul into that character for the Police Academy movies. Hopefully they're still around. It's not a Mandela effect because, you know, they made 7 of them. They ended up in Russia. They ran out of ideas. So I'm just putting it out there.
You know what? You know what? Silence you. Be gone.
Well, it is an audio medium, so yeah, this is going to go well. Now, straight off the bat, bit of information that has come to light. The Pentagon has actually acknowledged some videos that have unidentified flying objects in their gun sights. The footage has been around since 2007 and 2017. Some people are going, oh, we know about that. Yes, but the story is that the military has finally gone, well, yeah. And because of the age that we live in, it's not being covered by the mainstream media at all. It's like, oh, yeah, okay. And so it's interesting to see the timing of said reveal of why now. Thoughts? That's when you talk. John. I'm pointing at him, but it's an audio medium. It's not working.
Sorry. What was that?
So apparently the government has finally acknowledged there are UFOs.
Yes. Well, oddly enough, to me, the most credible UFO stories have always been the ones, the Navy ones, where the sailors and submarines, you just see this giant craft come up out of the water and dive bomb into it and do all sorts of, very, very fancy and beautiful things.
They describe it, if I may interject very quickly, they describe it as it shouldn't be able to, due to physics, they shouldn't be able to do it. It's like a ping pong ball hitting a concrete wall. It's like ping, ping, like, well, we can't do that.
Well, if we can't do it, then nobody can.
Yep, that's very human. Control, yeah. And of course, as we delve into the whole UFO question, are they ours? Because that's the level we're at.
The real question is, Monty, do they have a flag? Because if you don't have a flag, you can't have a country. Well, therefore, you can't claim. You can't stick a flag in the ground.
Yeah, and the arrogance of the United States government. So, oh, they'll land here. Yeah, it's like the aliens are watching and going, oh, those Yankee types are nice. Let's go land there. And I think they've tried that through the one major question that has popped through my head when this has come out, and someone on the tweet actually said this: how are they going to explain the last up to 80 years of lying to the general public? That's going to be an interesting press conference. Yeah, we've been telling porkies. Sorry about that. Really, so yeah, now your trust level has even gone down further.
If that wasn't already possible.
Exactly, because the idea of vaccines, where I don't trust the government, I'll have this vaccine. Sure, why? Yeah, why not? Let's go 100%. The man's wearing a white coat. He knows what he's doing. So yeah, this hasn't been tested.
Clearly.
It'll be fine. Yeah.
Clearly.
I keep getting called an anti-vaxxer because I want highest safety standards in vaccines. But hey, I'm crazy. I'm kooky. I'm a bit of an outlier. Oh, RD, well, it's just myself and John Z at the moment. RD47, which sounds like a droid from Star Wars, and I mean that in a positive light. He's in the chat room. Yeah. So
did you say dryer?
No. Have you been into the Twinkies again?
No.
Well, there you go. Oh, dear me. Why I recently watched The Umbrella Academy. Yeah, a good superhero TV show. And they one kid who travels into the future says, that whole thing about Twinkies survive forever? They don't. Like, fair enough.
I don't know where it got started at all, because it's made out of bread and it's got like 30 days or something.
Who knows? That's the reality we live in, when someone they last forever, and 40 years later we're still saying we're repeating it. The bit of information not backed up by scientific evidence or experiments.
Just all by itself, there's so many things that we pass on as and it's just the human thing to just pass on bullcrap.
Yeah, and then you have Chinese whispers, which I think at base root is a racist term, because you're familiar with Chinese whispers, where you would have, like, you're in kindergarten and you got 6 kids, and one person says I question the nature of my reality, and then it gets down to the last kid and goes purple monkey dishwasher.
Yeah. Yeah, we just called it telephone.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. Yep. Which, well, yeah. I'm from Australia.
You convicts, you have to do everything the hard way, right?
Well,
you can't get on the island the right way, properly. You gotta be shipped forcefully.
Well, it's a harsh brown land that I live in, which is very dark and rainy and green. But yeah, that's the fun part, where when I go to England, if they call me convict, I'll just stab them and take their wallet. So you got me there, laddo.
You got me. I'm sorry, boyo.
Very Welsh. Hey, boyo, you think that's funny? How about a knife into the ribcage then?
Uh-oh.
Nope.
Uh-oh. Yeah, no.
Okay, you're learning to type again?
Oh, my keyboard not working.
Oh, sounded like you said keyboard. I'm like, ooh, maybe you should use a keyboard. Anyway. So, yeah.
Are you trying to species shame my keyboard?
Yes, I am. You should use an iguana like normal people.
Yes, I see. Right. All right. Well, move topics while I go get another beer.
So important things. Oh, look. Oh, yes. He's having a go at his microphone. So, well, the question is, yes, Scottish, Welsh. It's all on the same island. You can walk there. I know. I'm not good. I've been watching a lot of Outlander, which is all Scottish, and I need to go to the kitchen and get some food. And then I watched a sitcom called Dairy Girls, which is the late 90s, and I spoke Irish for about half a day, and then it's disappeared. Strange Northern Ireland aspect where they had a character from the Ukraine pop over. Was like, I don't know what's wrong with you people. You both believe in the same God, but you keep killing each other. Good,
Yeah.
But if you bring it on, and of course that subtle Caucasian thinking of like instead of a civil war, they just call it the Troubles. Way to downplay it.
That's good. It's good.
Yeah, and it's weird from the Wokedom where like the white man bad. Well, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, it's white person fighting white person, so they're both evil.
They do white people things.
Yes. Who are in a minority? I still haven't checked the numbers because I know at least 1 in 7 is Indian, another 1 in 7 is Chinese. I think the amount of white people on the planet is from an elbow down to a hand of those people. We only represent this much, and especially like I do find fascinating where a lot of people bash the Jews. There's only 20 million of them. They could move into London, and that's globally. Wow.
Well, they are little wiry fellas.
Well, yes. From the documentary Defamation, their schooling system is very unique, where everyone wants to kill you, and they have that constantly repetition that it's not Stockholm syndrome. It's it's a form of trauma, not trauma. Drama. Well, there's a new word. It's tragedy and drama at the same time. It's a bit of trauma. And yeah.
To take the first part of the show. So with this this acknowledgement, this release of footage of the UFOs. What do you think that means? Do you think it means anything, especially in the time that this is all kind of going on? Because there's a lot of how would I say this? There's a lot of interesting subjects being brought up across the board, not just in YouTube videos, but I would say in different communities. Everyone's starting to ask questions that they really haven't. I wouldn't say never asked before, but everyone's asking these questions all at the same time now, right?
That would be because of the lockdown, and everyone is under self-imposed house arrest. And most people don't like themselves. That's why they have all these distractions. And so they've been stuck in their house for 1-2 months. And that inner voice of screaming, look at this, and they're dealing with it. And it's, in a way, people are waking up because they've got the chance to actually do investigation or listen to things, or they're like, that I've been meaning to watch that YouTube video, or I've been meaning to read that book. And there isn't that constant grind of 40 hours a week distraction at work. And so they've now got time to process and, dare I say, a little bit of critical thinking. And they're like, oh, and so there's a lot of questions coming up. Interesting enough, here in Australia, there is a COVID-19 app, which is supposed to be finding out if you are breaching quarantine rules or whatever. And about just over 2 million people have downloaded.
Why would you download that?
Because we're saving lives. My God, what's wrong with you? Like, do you want everyone to die? And on the flip side of this, like, I've got nothing to hide. It's like, sure. I'm sure if I ask the wrong questions, you'll throw a chair at me. I'm just putting that out there. It's
very
like,
true.
Yeah, as Sean David Morton said, it's privacy. It's got nothing to do with, like, if you do nothing wrong, why do you need to know everything I do to make sure I'm doing nothing wrong?
Well, I mean, it's the same reason why your microphone is always live on your phone, and as well as your TV and your microwave and your toaster.
Oh, yeah, I love the joke where a father goes home and says to his wife, apparently we've been tracked and listened to. Like all the alphabet agencies are recording everything I say. And she laughed, my son laughed, my daughter laughed, Alexa laughed, Siri laughed. There is a fine line of using technology and becoming extremely lazy, where you have to ask a small cylinder disc instead of looking into, say, a book. Like, when was Athens invaded by blah blah blah, and then you get told, it's like, oh, I know something, and all I did was asked an AI for it instead of actually going through. It's like, they were invaded in 1703, blah blah blah. And not doing well with the examples today.
Wow.
We'll move on. Yeah, it's going to your question, which started that little rant rabbity hole.
that thing.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Mr. Biden. We'll get to him. I'm sure we'll bring up that, because that's fascinating. Where Hillary's like seems to be maneuvering herself, and now there's rumors she'll be VP, and that doesn't look well. It's like, does Joe Biden know something? He'll get elected. Well, I mean, you can't even finish that sentence without laughing. He'll get elected, and then she'll take over. That will end well.
And they're like, well, no, I don't. She can't really do it to Biden. She can't really just like suck out his soul. She doesn't have too much time around him.
Well, no, but he's falling apart. That clone really needs to be replaced, and he fell asleep on air. But we'll get to the Biden thing a little bit later. Playing the what if card, hey, with the alien acknowledgement. Perfect timing, as you sort of said, Ellie, how the general public are now asking the right questions because they've had time to think about and not worry, because they've been distracted by either their football or sport and work and bread and circuses. And it's interesting. It's like, I'm sure, and the Pentagon today, if it was, say, 6 months ago, the Pentagon has actually said that they have footage of UFOs, and it would have been front page news and all over the websites. But now it's like, if you look at page 7 down the bottom there's a paragraph like, we've had contact from the Palladians. Next week, netball.
Super tiny font. You can barely make it out.
Yeah, it's black print on black paper, so you sort of actually have to tilt it in the light so the ink can grab it. Yeah, it's interesting that because the lockdown, quarantine, and the economic side of things is such a distraction. They could just point out, Jesus is real. Next up, a vaccine. Like go back. What?
Just back that up a little bit. Just that. Wait, what was that? Breaking news? Oh, no.
A devoted Christian dies and goes to heaven. It's like, Jesus, why didn't you come back? Well, I did and got arrested because I wasn't wearing a mask. You people are sick on so many levels. So there's that aspect of it's a perfect time to get lost, like especially with the mainstream media is not covering it at all, and so it falls into the alternative conspiracy world, and they're still pushing that, like, conspiracies are evil. Yeah, but 17 of them have become true in the last 4 months. Shut up, fool, you weirdo. Interesting enough, like there are people saying there's mass arrests, and on the other side there are people saying it's a new world order and there's a loss of rights. Here in Australia, now, of course, the government said something, so don't hold your breath. You'll hurt yourself. You'll pass out and hit your head on the table. They're putting forward they're going to slowly start rolling back the quarantine from stage 3 and everything else like that. We sort of have to be aware of, like, not like Chancellor Palpatine, where he kept all his powers and never relinquished them. The governments sort of have to roll back, especially like if you've got most of the population very cranky and angry. Anakin,
not from a Jedi.
Did you ever hear the tale of the tragedy of Plagueis the Wise? Yes, you've said it to me every day for the last 4 months. Shut up.
Yeah, those Adult Swim, the Robot Chicken ones were freaking priceless.
Oh yes, my favorite is Seth MacFarlane doing the voice of the Emperor, and he's in the Chancellor's office or the Emperor's office, and he gets a phone call from Darth Vader after the first Death Star has blown up. What do you mean it blew up? What kid? What the hell's an aluminum falcon? Oh, geez, he's crying. Yes. I reckon if for those who like Star Wars and a bit of comedy, I would recommend the Robot Chicken stuff. It is great. Like their portrayal of Boba Fett is just awesome. Oh yeah, that's right, Solo. Yeah, you like that? Okay, we just anyone. If anyone is upset that we stray from the conversation, it's to upset all the alphabet agencies because they have no idea. It's like, what, they're talking about Star Wars again. And it's like, yes, but they're talking about UFOs. Is there a connection? I don't know. Is this why Dave wants to listen to this show every week? We hide information in silliness. Yeah, it's a distraction and everything else like that. Now, if we go a bit conspiratorial in the negative, are they trying to set up a fake alien invasion, trying to control the narrative and basically pee on the general public? I don't think that will happen. I don't think that's their plan. I think it's just someone's gone, oh, well, we'll just release this and see what happens. Because we've got the whole pandemic thing. However you want to look at it, from my understanding, there is a virus. The numbers are completely lower than what were projected. However, you could say that's because of the actual quarantine, and let's not get into a bun fight about that. The next wave of fear, if we go with the concept that the black hats use fear to control and they feed off the fear, however you want it, energetically, or just they feel better about themselves because they're controlling, and because that's their currency is in fear. You've got the pandemic where everyone's going to die. They're not dying. They're not dying at all. Shut up. And then you have the economic situation, which was starting to do its thing before the virus. So at the end of the last year, there was cracks in the dam. Now, if you delve a little bit further than that, the economy crapped itself in 2008. And so it's... yeah, there we go. I was distracted. See, I'm producing myself, which is not a masturbation joke. And so we're finally seeing the onslaught of the stupidness of the economic thing. And so if we're going through the I'm making shit up theory, the fear of being used as currency, the economic side of it is the next one, because it's fascinating to see, like, a lot of Americans lost so many jobs in 6 weeks, and there's bread lines and everyone's in cars, and it's like, this is not a good look for the most richest country in the world, and a bit of responsibility for the people. Sorry to be slightly harsh, but it's basically I've heard someone use a lot, actually, that COVID-19, the gift that keeps on giving, which is in a way true. It's just way you need to actually deal with it. Someone who can deal with it, because I can't think of a better segue, we've been joined by the Viking. How are you, sir?
There we go. I'm doing good, guys. Kind of liking your segue here.
Yeah.
It's been entertaining.
Oh, thank you very much. I try my best. Which sometimes when it's raining and cold and I need more sleep, my best is very small. Moving on. And so with the economic... thank you, Bill Grant. A joke from Bill Grant, ladies and gentlemen. Breaking news. Millions of people are falling asleep caused by subliminal messaging. News at 11. Oh, snooze at 11. See ya. Sorry, Bill, I ruined that. But that was good. I like that wordplay. So you got the pandemic, pushes everyone into fear, and you're all going to die. And then after 2 months, people have died, but why does everyone in society have to be locked in their house? Then you have the economic side of things, which even if tomorrow I'm going to say tomorrow. Pandemic. Huh, I like that play on words as well. The pandemic's over. We're all fine. We've got a vaccine that's blah, 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 blah. Still got the economic crap to deal with, which was happening before all this. And the way I see it, and Viking, good time to chime in, the whole pandemic, now I'm saying pandemic all the time, the virus has sped up the economic side of things, because you close down, because the economy was run into the inch of its life, and 4% movement down, everyone freaks out, and here we are with everything else like that. So I don't see how you could bring in the whole alien aspect on top of that, because you'll just freak people out, if that makes sense. John?
I really don't think that's the goal anymore. Like, I don't even think that's a feasible possibility anymore.
Yeah, that's now I'm not putting forward that I'm correct. I'm just working through a theory so we can just go, no, I'm full of crap, and we can pull it out of the mix. So say 6 months ago I could have said, well, this is a possibility. However, today I don't see it as a possibility. That, like, it's an old form of thinking, and it won't actually do. It would backfire greatly, because humans can adapt so much, and if you're in like Plato's cave, and someone keeps throwing bricks at your head, eventually you're gonna react. Mainly probably after the second brick, but you can see what I'm saying.
Well, I mean, you can't react to the second brick if the first one did its job.
Well, it could have missed. Now, don't be. Oh, yes, an army gag. Well, if the aim was true, yeah. Well, yeah. Obviously, if the first one hit you in the temple, but the guy next to him is like, "Dave, you all right?" It's like, "Oh, he's got a brick in his head." Where did that come from? Yeah. So, Viking, did you hear about the news that it was on ABC? So, large grain of salt in the United States, that the Pentagon has actually acknowledged there's videos of UFOs.
I saw the video, and it's interesting that they were all on gun sites. It's like they were showing these different objects that were defying gravity and defying, doing these weird maneuvers and shapes and whatnot. But they're all these pilots that were in jets. They were showing them in their gun sights. It's about time. It's kind of lining up with Trump's Space Force, and he's not interested in the moon at all. He's interested in the fact that we have bases on Mars already, and that we're already mining the asteroid belt for precious metals. The Nazis are out there. They're out there mining the asteroid belt, and we have a secret Space Force base on the backside of the moon. He wants to become a player in that. We're already engaging with extraterrestrials in trade and economy. It's more or less a soft exposure.
Yeah, it sounds perfect for Trump. It's I'm going to expand. I can't really say I represent humanity, because most of humanity would go no. But you could see, just from a business point of view, expand. We've got opportunities in space and so on and so forth. Then, of course, you'll have all the galactics going, yeah, easy there, Tiger. You're human. We need to have a word. With the gun sights, it's interesting. We come in peace. Very human as well. Not everyone in humanity is like that, but it's very sad at the same time. But yeah, it's fascinating. Like Space Force, which was that last year or this year? It was recent, if I can go like 6 months, and then this pops up, and see, it doesn't resonate. So I'm probably putting forward a narrative that they want, which won't work, which is for whatever reason, not humans, but dare I say psychopaths. They need an enemy to have an element of control and purpose. It's very 1984, actually, the book, where this week we're against Oceania, next week we're against Eurasia.
Interesting.
It's that Mark Knopfler song, that pointing out the enemy to keep us deaf and blind. It's that whole scenario. They have to keep the attention off of them, so they create a false flag event to distract the people and throw them into fear and chaos. It is a stratagem that has been used for thousands of years, and it's people are actually growing tired of this. And a quick note here: there was an expose done on one of the YouTube channels of this kid. He's 24 years old, and he's been locked down for a month. And he starts ticking away at YouTube and runs across 9/11 and starts to investigate that, and then he goes to these false flags and he starts to investigate that, and he starts to understand how there's a deep state and there's and Pizzagate, and a month later the guy's catatonic. I mean, he is just like, he does know what to do. He woke up and he's in this fetal position where he just wants to go back. It's the whole thing like in the Matrix where the guy wants to go back and take the blue pill. It's like, but he can't. And he's like, this is the state of millions of people on this planet, is that this has caused them to wake up, and it's kind of a reverse engineering of their psyche, and it's backfired. This whole thing is backfiring on the deep state because now they're becoming more exposed, and they only had power over. It's like a spell. If you acknowledge the spell, then you'll be under the spell cast. But if you sit there and see right through it, the spell gets reversed and it goes back to the person who cast it, and it devours them. It's the same kind of theory here, where unless the deep state has people to actually engage, they themselves will implode, and we are. Where these timelines are collapsing as people start to let go of this rhetoric and the false flags and the lies and the programming, and we're getting to a point where, the disclosure element, as it's been saying now for years, is that there's in order for humanity to evolve, we need disclosure and then we need prosperity, and we're totally in that first phase. We're totally entrenched in this first phase of disclosure.
Yeah, I see it as a non-violent revolution because they're pushing humanity, or the narrative's being pushed where the powers that were trying to push a certain global narrative, and because Earth has stopped and people have had chances to do the research and then freak out because there's what is it, 5 or 7 stages of grief, and one would be that I've been lied to all my life. And I would add in right now is people like ourselves and everyone listening, we will be here to help to counsel and comfort people that are waking up very quickly, and also save them time so they don't get stuck down a rabbit hole. It's like, yeah, that's true. Don't worry about that one. Stay on the path type thing, because it'd be interesting to see if the rate of suicide, because of because they think the whole world is just dark, and they've been fooled, and they haven't tapped into their inner self. Now I'm just making this up as an example. They don't feel the hope or just the love of just being here and existing. They could go to, like, say, the stock market crash, where they thought they've lost everything, my life is over, and then jumped out a window. And if they waited 20 minutes, they realized, well, you still have these stocks. There's always a way. There's something always there, if I can say it that way.
Yeah, and what's interesting, this is why we call it the information bends. You have to be, it's best if you slow drip, but we're beyond that now. The timelines of that happening is gone. People are waking up rapidly, and then they're getting very, I don't know, it's almost creating a dementia, for a lot of people. The suicide rates are up, and the suicide hotlines are just absolutely just overrun with calls, and it's like this whole the alien invasion where with Orwell's where people thought it was real and they started freaking out, well, this is real, and is slowly coming to terms with people starting to take hold of the conscious reality that yes, they have been lied to, and all the programming through the schools and universities and what we've been told on the news and what we've been told by professionals and doctors is all been a farce. And this is a hard pill to swallow, really, really hard for someone, especially, you and I have been in this, and John has been in this for years, understanding this, but people that are just coming to terms for the first time in a matter of weeks, I can see, Monty, how you're right. We do have to sort of take charge here. And also, for people that have ridiculed us, they're now starting to say, hey, you're not sounding so crazy anymore.
Yeah. I haven't done it yet, but I would love to put into a search engine conspiracy theories that come true, because it's like, wow, look at all. I actually shared on Instagram, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Twitter's a cesspool, and I just go there for comedy. But it was conspiracy theorist, the term that is used in a derogative way to label someone who actually uses critical thinking. And I had Instagram take it down because it was against their community and practices or whatever. And I'm like, well, hang on, what? And then I found it, like, oh, you mean that one? So I put it back up again. And so I'm waiting for it to be kicked off again, because it's like, so you're against critical thinking and free speech. This is fascinating, Instagram. So if I get that notice, if it gets taken again, I'll take a photo of the notice and just spread it around going, well, yeah, you're not allowed to think anymore, ladies and well, you're not allowed to think, because and it's interesting to see people react to that little meme, whereas like, some of them aren't using critical thinking, to be honest, and I haven't responded because I would have to write 8 pages of what I meant. It could be just people's belief system, where there are people say the government would do that, and if they did do that, I would have heard it on the news. That's an interesting sentence, because who owns the government? Who owns the news? But people are awake, and the trick is not to scream, "I told you so," just to be calm and help them through. And once they're at a certain level, then you can say, "Well, I did tell you," and it's part of their healing. The whole alien thing, I had a thought as Viking was talking, is like, if they have a certain faction of aliens turning up with ships, or they're all holograms, the aliens are invading. Well, the government did shoot at them, so you can see why they're slightly upset. And also, no, they're faked. I've met aliens and they're not like that. Well, really? Are you making that up? It's like, look, there's a chunk of metal floating in the sky, and you're doubting me. Is that? Are we at that level where it's plus? If the sky is full of craft floating, can you imagine the ripples and ramifications of that? Like, in a way, religion could be totally removed in 24 hours.
Well, what blows my mind is if people out there still debating whether there's intelligent life out there. Just like, this is how far advanced. I mean, that was the question maybe 20 years ago and 10 years ago. If you're not paying attention and not out in the night sky and just being aware of what's happening, then you're in denial. You don't want to see it. It's just too much information, and this is where people are at. They don't, if they're not seeing it and acknowledging it, they don't want to see it at this point, because it's so in your face. There's so many on YouTube. You can just go for hours on sightings and disclosure in this arena, especially also with Sasquatch and all these other elementals and fays, being on this planet. There's people that are just so locked into their bubble that they don't want to see it, and this is where you have to kind of draw a line and go, okay, well, that's fine. I'm not going to have to line myself with them. It's their karma contract to play this out. But people are so still trying to negotiate their life, not trying to upset people around them. Well, you can't do that anymore. You have to move forward. And they'll eventually either wake up or follow in your slipstream of understanding, or they won't. This is a hard. We are in the crux of awakening on all levels, and whether you're awakening to the fact that there's a deep state, or awakening to the fact that there's a higher sense of reality or being, it's the same. It's the same process of awakening. It's going to get you to the same place. is to get you to being a sovereign, being a free thinker, in your free will and choice of your self-mastery, because eventually you're going to have to come back and understand that you need to provide for yourself on all levels, in this this slipstream of reality. You have to provide for you. You can't count on aliens to save us. You can't count on the government to save you. You can't count on doctors to save you. You have to really be awakened. And awaken, you underline that's what's taking place in this transit that we're in. We're in this transit right now. To even understand that is to be awakened.
And interesting enough,
that's still vanguard here. We're still vanguard. You and I, Monty, that we're actually in a transit.
Yes, I got a download, or I figured out, or how there was a feeling, however language you want to use, that last year, I'm not sure exactly when, but from a soul level, people made choices. Like a decision was made, and even if you're on the fence of one or the other, the choice was made for you. And in basic language, it's you stay in the 3D or you go into the 5D. Now, that's not written in stone, those words, because who knows exactly what's happening, because everyone's unique and you're going through your own process. And for those who want to meet Jesus, I'm sure you'll meet an entity which is the form of Christ consciousness. Your belief system will be part of it, because it's all an inside job, to steal a small quote from 9/11. Everyone's going through their own thing.
It's a job theory.
Yeah, it's that I like to bring that up because we've heard that for about 19 years, and so the idea of the thought just slips right in there, where whatever you're going through, everyone is going through whatever you've decided or co-created and here to experience. And in this transition, what I refer to as the change, because the event in a way has been weaponized by certain corners of reality. But we are changing because it is a process, as Viking said. Andrew Bartzis has said there was the event happened in August 2014, and we're sort of catching up. I'm like, well, that resonates with me. I'm not sure what the event was. It could have been a solar flare. However, because and this is where Viking can chime in as well, this time it's different. Instead of ascending or realizing who you are, remembering who you are, and tapping into that all that was and will be, and the veil's gone. The way I mention it, which I could be wrong, but I'll just put it out there, is we're taking our body with us this time, where we don't actually have to die. We may have an ego death, but the body is moving from carbon to chrysalis, and so you can't do it very quickly because you'll explode. And that's sort of where I'm at today. Tomorrow I could change, but that's sort of you can't take it with you. Well, this time I think we can. I think that's the new thing, because we have gone through similar aspects of going into ascension and the path and finding nirvana or enlightenment or whatever language you like. But this time, total mind wipe, free will is one way of explaining it, and we're taking the body with us because of all the interconnecting DNA, and we've got like a AAA pass for reality because we can vibrate anywhere. There's also an element of we came into the galactic college, the ascension machine, and then there was a virus or something came in and paused it, and so that's why we've been stuck in a massive loop over and over again, and so we're getting out. And yeah, so I mean that's just splitting hairs, but still that's sort of where I can see us where we're going. As Viking has expressed before, no one is left behind. Now, some people may drop body and go to another 3D world to finish it off. Will they remember this experience so they don't get stuck? Because my understanding is that the Archons or the virus or the AI or the blackness, whatever that entity that's been feeding off the planet and humanity and kept us in one spot, they're losing and slowly being broken down. And so all of creation is waiting for this to go. And there's also an idea that this is like the third or fourth time we've gone through it. And quite frankly, that's probably why I'm tired. We're doing it this time, people. Rant over.
No, the reason why it's failed three times, and this is our third try here. It's failed 2 times. Atlantis being the last time, is that in duality you have to have both extremes in order to create an algorithm or an understanding. It all boils down to ones and zeros and vibration. And so what happened is that they had to let the sociopathic, psychopathic tendency into this matrix, or I call it the Petri dish. It's a grand experiment here, and it was weaponized by the agenda behind the agenda in the deep state is the archons, the reptilians, the Dracos, the darker ions, the grays. All this deep faction weaponized it and created the ego in fear and I was going to say fear and loathing, but fear and anger. And this is what we've been here to master is this positioning of where we are trying to survive and negotiate our needs and wants of addiction in the vindication of the ego's need to survive. We've been put in survival mode, for eons. We've been in this programming, this 3D, going round and round and going nowhere fast. It's the wash, rinse, spin cycle of life of our PTSD, of our karmic encumbrances, and this has been the karmic loop that you're referring to. And to come out of it is to understand that there is an antigen to the sociopathic tendency, and that's why we're here. We're here to develop this detachment, this surrendering of trying to make it work and try to control it instead of being part of the 0 point of non-time is being part of the ambiance of the synchronicities of your creative will and magic. It's the whole letting go, and trying to then find self-reflection rather than trying to dictate your reflection in life. And so this is going back to your point where we're ascending here in this body. It's true, because in this carbon-based reality we have been dying and being reborn, and dying and being reborn, and carrying our karmic encumbrances forward to resolve, but then we get caught up in another spin cycle and create more karma. But in this cycle here that we're in right now, we are resolving all of our vindications and encumbrances. This is what doing the process or doing the work or being vigilant means. You're awakening, and you're just no longer involving yourself in these attachments and this whole mechanism of trying to create reality. You're manifesting it just by who you are. And just that, and the final note here is, we are actually in this pursuit going into, we're in 4D right now and going into 5 as we start to bring on this new genetics of our DNA, which is getting into the higher echelon of our 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th strands and 12 chakras. We are creating this new Merkaba expression. This is this new assertion of life, which has never ever been done before in galactic history. In fact, we're creating what's known as a brand new race, a galactic race in our evolution, and it has to do with the fact that we are now being able to negotiate our emotions and our sexuality and our sensuality and our creative will from the reflection of our passion. And this is what they're missing. And these are the ones and zeros in our DNA that they are going to basically be splicing from us. We're all representing a soul grouping, and so they're actually splicing this out of our DNA and splicing it into their DNA. And we are creating a resonant frequency that's never been experienced. And this is the crystalline state of being that you're referring to.
Excellent. That's why I'm going to have 18 months off in my time after this is done. I'm going to party, have a rest, and then ease into being Awesome. Coming up to the break in about 6 to 7 minutes. Death Star in the chat room asked, how do you get rid of the ego and how do you cut the karma cords? There's a couple of ways to do the karma cords, but we may touch up on that after the break, because I'm sure we can talk about ego, where there's a couple of ideas and thoughts where you can remove the ego completely, and then it popped up on my radar that you sort of just need to clean the ego, because the ego is part of you. You don't allow it to control it. You control you, type thing. Then he's a mind bender. Then there's soul ego, and that's fun, where I've had that where it's like I'm doing well and I'm working and doing the cleansings and transmuting the energies, and I'm taking the sandbags off so I can fly. And then my higher self pushes me down a set of stairs. I'm like, yeah, thanks for that. Just a bit of a reality check. I'm like, yay. But with the ego, the way I used to describe it is it's like a breathing mask, like a scuba gear. And the 3D was a big pool. But now the pool is empty, and so you can take the mask off. However, you can take the mask off your face. Oh, very quickly, face mask. Where else do you put a mask? Like your elbow, your knee, it's a knee. No, it's a knee mask. No, it's just face. It's a mask. That's what goes on your face. But my understanding is, and I'm here to explore, the ego is still part of you because it's part of your experience. The trick is not to just have that as your focal point or let it run you in reverse, that reverse type of thing. Viking, what do ye say? What's your perception?
Well, I'm a little bit different. I believe that the ego is a false mask that we wear that controls our thinking and our needs and wants of our addiction and our need for survival. And we think we know what we need, and we defend it till death, and we have judgment and we have fear. I think this is an aperture that really, as I said, has been weaponized by the sociopathic, psychopathic tendency to create this need for survival. And it's a false illusion of self.
Yeah.
I don't think we need the ego. I think from what I'm understanding here, and what the Galactics are saying, is that we're surrendering the ego because it's how we have negotiated life, is through our ego. It's a false aperture coming into your. So let's say this: you're replacing the ego with self-mastery. Self-mastery is a reflection from within. The ego is the edict of this of how you are positioning yourself and manifesting your life in this 3D reality.
Yeah. It's like an old hat or a scarf where you still have it for a while, and you just today I may wear my hat for 30 seconds, and you can sort of play with it. But I can see how it's been tweaked, weaponized, and made that the focal point of existence, where you need all the money, and then you have the power, and that will feed your ego. If you're grounded and you're in balance, you can still have an ego, but it's like having a Band-Aid on your thumb. If you understand.
Well, don't mistake ego for individuality. Individuality and self-mastery and is not. The ego is still 3D matrix. You don't cleanse the ego. You surrender it. You're not modifying the ego here. The ego is still thinking. It's left side, caught up in this bad dream, this dystopia. Literally, it's you're surrendering it for individuality, for compassion, for integrity. Which is something that we really need to start understanding here as males, is the integrity that we carry, and there's no need to proving who you are, because you just are. You don't go around saying I'm a great cook or I'm a great artist. No, you're recognized for your virtues.
Yes. Oh, excellent time. We're on the break. This is Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, Planet Collingwood, Open Roundtable. My name is Monty Dean. I am with the Viking and the Z. We'll come back with a little bit of ego talk. Hey, see what I did there? And we'll go anywhere we want, really. So stick around. I love you all, but from afar, let's keep it clean. Come on. Yeah. See you soon. And welcome back to Revolution Radio. I'm hearing echo, but that's probably just the server. So I'll power on. I'm behind the veil. Yay. I'm just standing behind the curtain at the same time. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, revolution.radio. This is Planet Collingwood Open Roundtable. At this point in time, I am joined by the Viking. John Z has popped out into the green room to get some walnuts. Oh, he's back with his walnuts, so hopefully he'll chew in silence. Hi, kid.
Get your peanuts here. Get your peanuts.
Oh, he's selling peanuts. You know, big crowd here in the huge crowd here in the studios, ladies and gentlemen. If you enjoyed the last hour, please go to said website, freedomslips.com and or revolution.radio, and donate what you can so we can continue on sharing the fabulous information on Studio A and B. We are 100% listener supported and 100% volunteer, except for John Z. I give him peanuts to sell. So, damn, they found out our crafty little scheme.
I have a peanut story.
Oh, careful how you say that.
my favorite peanuts of all time was when I was in India back in 1977, the year Star Wars came out. I was in Jaipur, India, and this old part of town, and they would sell peanuts in an oxen cart, just full of peanuts, and they'd have this clay pot. And in the clay pot, they would have these charcoals or embers, and they would place it and nuzzle it into the peanuts. And so when you ordered peanuts, they'd take the pot up, and they'd scoop out these warm peanuts and put them into a newspaper and make a little funnel, you know. And oh my God, it was so good. I mean, that was like going back in time, you know, going to India.
I'm impressed. Yeah, I can't remember my first time.
Well, I'm telling no, that was my first time. The first time, that was my favorite time. that I enjoyed. I actually enjoyed that the flavor of the peanuts was so good that to this day I can still taste them.
I'm going to get a transcribe program, and I'm going to see how that story comes out in words. Anyway, that's I'm more of a cashew type of chap. But my bad teeth and chunks of nuts of wood, people. There I said it. And just going back to the ego, I figured out that as you do the work and you become grounded and go into your heart space and start deprogramming the brain and seeing what doesn't serve you, the ego will slowly dissolve. And so you don't have to rip it off because it's very raw. As you move through life and start seeing how everyone else is like, I did this and I'm perfect. Shut up. You'll actually just slowly dissolve as we move forward. Someone who will not dissolve, because I can't get him into my cellar and get him into the acid bath. Cortek, how are you, my friend?
Hello. How is everyone? Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. I'm good.
Yeah, no, those mats are pretty good for 5 minutes. To bit of exfoliation, but you don't want to stay in there too long.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the whole foot on the head thing. That's just not right, ladies and gentlemen. Now, are you aware that the Pentagon has acknowledged there is footage of UFOs?
I saw those last night. Did you download the footage?
No, I watched it with it basically sent a ripple through the alternative community. It's like, oh wow.
I traced it back, and it is actually coming from them. You can actually go to the media source and download it. Why do you think they're releasing this stuff now? What are we being distracted from? It was my first thought.
Well, or are we being distracted, and so they'll slip this out? So, you know, page 7, small paragraph. We met aliens, and that's it. So, you know, they can still foment confusion. So
I remember reading what was that? One of those that first book that was put out with all the first moon landings. Behold a pale horse. That's it.
Yeah.
The guy from that, I forget his name even now. He was originally in the Navy, and the Navy's always had these sightings and these footage, and it just seems to be so common out there. Yeah. In the sea.
Excuse me. There's it's like when people say aliens don't exist. So what you're saying is every abductee, contactee, experiencer, video footage, photographic footage, military personnel that weren't allowed to actually report it is all fake. That sounds like a conspiracy. Oh, as well as 32 different ancient civilizations that refer to sky gods.
The Indians and the Vimanas, that's kind of in stone in places, isn't it?
Yeah, and so that sounds like a massive conspiracy of faking that aliens exist. It's like that's way out of it. Just easy to go, no, they're here.
Yeah, no, they're here. They're all around us. Yeah, it's a bit easier. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's just a thought. Well, stuff all this kind of cover up stuff. I think people are cottoned on by now. I think we just kind of hit them with the Navy footage, and I don't know. I mean, is it something people are going to forget about next week because it's so common anyway?
Well, it's not been covered by the mainstream media, so
what of note is?
One, but you need like 3, so then people go, oh, look, it must be real. Now, what I find slight ironic and makes me giggle, Death Star, that's actually the chatter's name. Alien attack now, question mark. And I'm like, your name's Death Star. That's fantastic. Like, yes. But going back, I think I mentioned...
You tell us.
Yeah, like, aren't you there? Is Vader a prick? As I mentioned in the first, I think it's a miscalculation if they're going to push the whole alien thing, because people are getting tired of feeling down in the negative, and the new normal now is just living in your house and talking to your kids.
Could it be to expunge some responsibility for this?
Well, that bit of a stretch was like, oh, the aliens did it. Yeah, yeah, of course, yeah.
Not that they did it, but there's an element that could be pulling strings here and there, maybe.
But the narrative, you could see sort of the narrative would be like, oh, aliens do exist, and so now everyone like, oh, are we safe? But there's too many of us that have had experiences, or we know someone. And it's like, well, maybe Jeff wasn't insane, and you know what I mean.
Peace, Jeff.
Yeah. But the very quickly, the knock-on effect is it would backfire, because there won't be an element of control, because there's too much experience through the centuries, and especially in the last 20, 30 years. Even the Roswell guys came out in the late 70s, and there's so many people questioning it. They won't believe. Like, well, the question is, why now? Go ahead, Viking.
So the transit here is: are there aliens? Is with the new age light bearers, is the new question is, what race am I from? Because I've often said, you want to see an alien, go look in the mirror. It's not a question of are there aliens, it's that what race are we from? Last week I had a Pleiadian on my show. He was actually from Agartha. He came here 20,000 years ago to Atlantis, and decided after the fall of Atlantis, he decided to stay on this planet and went inner Earth. He was actually he was more of a Mayan, kind of dark-skinned. He wasn't the classic tall blondes as we often know Pleiadians to be. So the question will evolve as I'm stating here. Not are there aliens, but which race are you from?
What would be the best way to work that out?
Your intuition. What are you attracted to? I mean, I've often from a kid have immediately understood the constellation of the Seven Sisters. I knew the Pleiadians. I knew there was something special there, and also, what are you more in engineering? Are you more of an engineer, kind of a physicist? That's more Arcturian, Andromedan. Lyrians are the cat race. They're attracted to cats. You always have to. It's like there's so many different aspects to the galactic races. I mean, there are also what's not well known in that field is that it's not just galactics. I mean, there are elemental races out there that are on planets that have colonies and tribes and nations and states and worlds of elves and fairies and the fairy kingdom and dryads, and there's the sectoids, and there's the cetaceans, the mermaid and the whales, and the dolphins all have their home world and the Sasquatch are actually have their home world as well. They came here like us, And so it's just like, what is your affinity? What your Keisha? Once you start acknowledging this, you start acknowledging your past lives. You start acknowledging your higher quantum dynamics of your clairsentient, claircognizant, clairvoyant understanding of life, where you're going into your quantum essence of your higher being. Your Keisha starts to unfold. I mean, I got in touch with my samurai. I got in touch with my Viking, my road bandits, all these different lifetimes. Being a Chinese farmer, Shaolin Temple. I just started to go with my affinities and attributes. What are you? If you're attracted to Persian carpets, or like to certain spices, the type of music, or this, or sushi, it's like that's what you start to tone into, and know that there's a reason why that marker has been placed in your genetics, is because you have been there.
What's your thought on past life regression to find?
I can't hear you.
Oh, what about now? Sorry,
No.
What's your thought on past life regression to find out this stuff?
Yeah, it works. I mean, I got in touch with my Roman legionnaire past life by doing a past life regression, and also my it unlocked my Viking aspect as well. I mean, it does work. You just have to. Again, the trick here is you have to surrender the ego and just have an open mind. You have to open mind that if you're seeing it, if it's coming to you, if you're starting to have these different downloads, the problem is that we don't pay attention because it's not in the normal sequence of the status quo. So we mark it off as a mark of the devil, or we mark it off as just coincidence, or there's no coincidence here. If you're getting certain aspects of what I refer to as insights or visions or epiphanies, start acknowledging and validating these, and they will create what I create. I call it a gossamer thread to your acacia, into your higher realm of perception. You have to when it starts to become unlocked, validate it, nurture it, celebrate it, and it will grow until finally, when I go into my show, the 30 seconds into my show, I drop into theta, and I don't even, I have to go back and listen to my show just to hear what I said. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm in my higher awareness, and like I've trained myself to do this because I trust what I'm seeing to be true.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. Do you think our egos act as like a front, a locked door to these other things? If we can get rid of that, then it's easier to see the layers of hypothetically see the layers of past lives and stuff like that, or accept them. I don't know. In
a way, it anchors you in the 3D, if I can say it that way.
Ego?
Yeah, because the ego was part of how, as a multi-dimensional being, to interact in the 3D, and then it gets weaponized, and then it's used against you, where you have to feed the ego and be the bestest ever, and make as much money, and have a big house, and have all these materialistic things, and then you die and you can't take it, and all your kids fight over it. It's like, yeah, maybe not. And then you have other people that just own a stick, and they're extremely happy. So it was part of the 3D experience, but now, as the frequencies are changing on the planet, you really don't need it. It's being dissolved, and you can do it yourself, or it can be forced dissolved, where people may freak out because they're so used to it.
Yeah, fair enough.
Here's another way to understand what's happening here is that we have been. So the ego's been weaponized in the left side of the brain. The male dominant aspect has been subjugated. We've been subjugated into the left side of the brain, and all of our belief structures have been manifesting in this reality. So it's the conquering, the need to be right, the need to make this happen, the need to be recognized. If you're thinking, then you're definitely still in the ego. It's taken me 30 years to really release the word I think with the words I see and I believe.
Yeah.
When you're seeing and believing, you're coming from your heart. You're not coming from the mind's doubt. When you're doubting, and you have fear and judgment, and you're trying to keep your illusory world from falling apart, well, then that's your domain. But so here now, when you're seeing and believing from the heart, what happens is that you now have the right side of the brain opens up as a binary function. See, now you're able to negotiate life with this true sense of reasoning, with the binary function of the brain, left and right side, synapsing as you're making decisions, right? Now you're no longer caught in subjugation. Now you're in free will and choice. So when you drop into your heart chakra, your heart monad, then your DNA and your chakras start to activate into 6, 7, 8, and 5, 6, 7, and 8, which then gives you true free expression of life. The fifth chakra is green. It's about expression and creativity and sharing and relationship. 6 is blue. It's vision. It's being able to have a goal and destiny and be able to plan your life out and have an understanding. And 7, of course, is the metamorphosis of all of your actions and decisions manifesting into your reality. 8 is a gateway. Well, I'm not going to go there now, but so when you're working with the binary function of the brain, it creates a portal. It literally opens up a portal. Well, I guess it will. So the portal is 8 to 9. So you have a gateway in your 3 to 4. We've been subjugated in the base 3, and there's a gateway right there that's opened up into your heart chakras. And now you have free will and choice to have full expression. And so when you get to your 8th chakra, there's a portal that opens up to what's known as your quantum dynamics. Your quantum dynamics is your clairsentient, clairvoyant, claircognizant, your epiphanies and your aspirations and your affinities, your visions, all come from your higher self. They come down with gossamer threads as files of information that gives you the complete picture of what you want to be seeing, and then you negotiate your life. This is where we're shifting you. That's the crystalline state. Because once you start accessing your 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th chakra, 9th being remembering who you are, why you're here, engaging in life in your skill set with benevolence, and then being able to upload 12, all this information gets uploaded to your soul grouping. You're in your Merkaba, so your higher than merges. So it's like a triangle, a 4-sided triangle or cube, or no, like a trapezoid, merges with your lower and creates a Merkaba of expression. So you're going from its carbon-based to crystalline, omniversal expression of life. And this is 5D, where you're totally in the moment. You're expressing your free will and choice. You're in your sensuality. You're in your passion, and you're willing to share this with benevolence as a tribe, as a unity consciousness. So then when everybody starts to get on page, we create what's known as a super omniversal expression of unity consciousness. This is 5D.
Yeah, it's intuition. You feel, and you start to. That's part of the exciting part of going from the head into the heart. I make a lovely joke of like, you don't turn your brain off because the first thing your heart's going to say is "breathe, you idiot." So it's an upgrade in that respect, where it's you have a feeling, and you start to learn to like humans have this fantastic uniqueness of we have so much emotions, and it's a form of language. The thing is to learn to control your emotions, and it doesn't like if you hit yourself with a hammer, you're going to feel pain. You can still, you have a rise, but then you don't sit there for 4 hours. Probably not the best example, but you're allowed to feel your emotions, but don't allow it to control you. Because, back in 1935, you said my sandwiches were crap and I was offended, and that's why I haven't spoken to you.
They were crap.
Yeah, but the thing is, that's an interesting part of time travel is by keeping onto that emotion in that time, it anchors you in a timeline, and it keeps taking you back there. By knowing how to work with your emotions and let you control your emotions, don't let your emotions control you. Viking.
I just think it's just back to the first thing Viking said, I think it's so important just to change the language to get out of this I think to move towards somewhere where
I feel you're correct.
It changes. It changes. It seems to change the fundamental underlying structure of everything that goes on top of it.
And it's interesting too, where like I hear what you're saying, or I see what you're saying, and that's part of their experience, where people visualize what you're saying, like, and then or they're auditory, and I hear what you're saying. It's moving from in a way belief to feel. But we could, I don't want to get into
to feel or to be able to see yourself what someone else sees. Terence McKenna used to say that all of our metaphors for understanding other people come from, I see what you mean, or stuff like that. It's maybe it's somewhere we were, maybe it's somewhere we're going towards. Hopefully communication can get easier though, It's cool.
Well, let's delve into the old age where, like, namaste, which is I see the soul into you. I'm probably butchering that, but other people, it's like I see myself in you. The whole we're all one, instead of like, g'day Cortek.
Sounds like a bit of a euphemism.
It's why in Hinduism they have the women have the kumkum on the forehead, because it's like, look at my higher awareness, not my tits. This is what it represents.
Yeah, I don't think it's worded that way, but yeah. But I think yes, yeah. I wonder, because that's also right near the third eye as well, so it's probably multi-purpose. And there's a shocking joke of why do Indians have a red dot on their forehead, because they don't bloody listen as you tap their heads. It's like, well, aren't you a white turd? It's like, how English are we? Yes. Apologies to any English people here. It's not the English people. It's the psychopathic ruling elite that think that God's an Englishman. I don't think so.
So I can answer that question about relinquishing your karmic encumbrances, because what you're referring to here, gentlemen, is the reactive nature of the brain, or the reactive nature of our decision making, creating this hologram, right? Because if you're in reactive nature and reacting to life and always trying to counter reactions, it's like getting sucked into an argument, or getting sucked into a debate, or trying to prove yourself, or trying to to manifest your life and survival is reactive, right? You're reacting. It's the left side's nature to survive, and it will, again, it's been weaponized into all these devious dystopias. So the hardest pill to swallow here, excuse me, is the fact that it's karma. So karma encumbrances. Karma is an act. It's that when you create an action or a motive or emotion of your intent and will, and it's going to be negative, say negative or trying to again, it's coming from the ego. If your action is coming from the ego, creating a negative spin on somebody or some instance, you're creating a frequency, a resonant frequency of that emotion, of that trauma, of that tribulation, and that resonant signature of ones and zeros that is embedded in your DNA. It goes into your DNA as a virus. Until you resolve that encumbrance, it will repeat itself from lifetime to lifetime. So we came into here with our particular cocktail of PTSD of karmic encumbrances. So what we have to do now to resolve our karma is to understand that what we are experiencing is the product of our karma. So this is a tough one. If you've been raped, it's because you were a raper in a past life, and you have to experience the antigen of your own actions. If you've been backstabbed, if you've been lied to, because you're still carrying these elements of these negative resonant signatures as viruses. Until you come to resolve them, you will then be living in your karma. So it's like to be able to disengage and not to have this reactive nature, and understand that everybody on this planet is suffering, and everybody's playing their parts. It's their contract, perhaps in this lifetime, to engage you in trauma. But we have to understand is we have to resolve ourselves by knowing, oh, this is how it feels. Oh, this is the emotional suffering that's being created here, and then to find resolve by backing away and understanding your part, and then you get into Christ consciousness. The first step of Christ consciousness is forgiveness. You're forgiving yourself in this action. Now I see it. Now I understand the duality here. I understand, what has been played. It's the ping pong effect. It's coming back at you as much as you put it forward.
Yeah.
And then the next step, wait, is non-judgment. Non-judgment is the second step, or the second phase of Christ consciousness. The third is surrendering the vindications of the ego.
If I may, very quickly, I've mentioned it before. Viking's still alive. Viking's still alive, everybody. I'm just putting that out there. That's right.
I got a frog in my throat. I'm trying to clear it.
Yeah, reminds me of Miss Piggy. Anyway, back to you. No, very quickly, eventually, now I realize to say this correctly, eventually we will forgive the Cabal. Don't know if it's going to be 300 lifetimes, but eventually, once we'll see what they actually did on a higher soul level, where they're playing their part. Now, I don't think many people will forgive them tomorrow because of all their crimes will come out and there's a process. But eventually, there will be forgiveness and compassion because I refuse to go to the dark side. I am like my father, Anakin Scott. Anyway, I'm just throwing that seed because eventually, like you may balk at that and refuse that idea, which is totally understandable because of the crimes to humanity. Which is multi-layered, financial, war, food, chemical, everything else like that. But sometime in the now, which is a strange sentence, but there will be forgiveness for them. It's getting to that point. And it doesn't have to be this lifetime. 3 lifetimes from now, you'll go, that really attractive young comedian on the radio said something. I'm going to pun.
I'm pretty convinced they think they're doing the right thing, though, huh?
They are playing their role. This is their contract. The Galactics have often said that they have to play it out. They have to play it out to the end. So they're not going away until their timeline has collapsed. And the only way for their timeline to collapse is for us to surrender the vindication of what we think needs to happen here, based on it reflecting our own pain and suffering. See, we want to not fall into the village mob mentality where, draw and quarter or hang them at burn them at the stake, because it's reflecting our own anger and pain and suffering. We have to be able to surrender the vindication of the ego here. They are doing their job. Not only are they doing their job, but they're doing their job masterfully because they are creating the awakening process to occur even faster.
A good example of not to do things the right way, I think I said that right. If you look at the French Revolution, it started out well, ended terribly because it was taking down the king and the elite, but it just went on, and the French just got into fear because if you said the wrong word, you had your head cut off. And it's that bloodlust and that aspect of it. And I mean, it is 200 and whatever years ago. So
it's super interesting though, because it sets a precedent for people in the country. In people in France, they feel there's a sense of pride still about it, that if things there was a precedent set and they had done it before, if things got to that again, kind of thing.
Yeah,
a lot of countries don't have that.
Well, they did go too far. That's the issue. Now, interesting enough, a month later, you had the American Revolution, where that was basically kicking out the English. It's slightly different, but they didn't go for that massive bloodlust sort of animalistic side of things, from my memory.
Because there was an external enemy, you could just try and get them off out of the borders, maybe.
Yeah. Viking.
I like the latest, I don't know if it's a meme yet, but this Pelosi Antoinette let them eat ice cream. I just love that.
Well, yeah, speaking of clones, that one I would get my money back for because she's deteriorating so bad.
But her whole deal was her $24,000 freezer and eating an ice cream bar, and it's like, and everybody else around her is suffering. I mean, she's got. Yeah. I know the road that she lives on, and it's like the elites of the elites, are on this particular road. It faces the bay, the San Francisco Bay, and it's just such an ivory tower there, man. It's just like I just can't believe it.
And the funniest thing is, she thinks she represents people. It's like she just represents herself.
I don't know how I could live without ice cream.
Yeah, well, I mean, but 24,000. Like, I did find that fascinating. Where most of the American people, just seeing the footage where they're in their cars, which is cool, but the bread lines have happened in 2 weeks and all that. It's like that's how it's supposed to be the richest country in the world, but it just shows the vast gap between the haves and the have-nots. And that will be part of the element of the change of like humanity needs a fair deal. Not saying Green Deal or New Deal or whatever. It's it exposed the corruptions where America's the best. Like, how many homeless people do you have? I think the system's ruined. We can do better.
Yeah, there's that great movie or something where some student from the audience is saying, we're the best, and then they go through the actual statistics.
Yes, that TV show. That TV show is
it's got that guy in it.
Yeah, I've gone completely headline or something like that. Yeah, I remember that. It's in the first episode where a college student says America's the best, and he just rambles off all the problems of the American society. And headline, I think it's called. And
it's not any problems that every single other country's not facing.
Oh yeah, It just that like in France, because of the revolution, going back to that very quickly, the government's scared of the people because like when they strike, the whole country strikes. Where you've seen all the semi trailers and the trucks just blocking roads everywhere, and there's like, okay, maybe we'll have a chat then. Sit down, please. It's
where the farmers bring their truckloads of manure and dumps it on their porch.
Yeah,
that guy who dumped the manure on the bank, I think maybe it was in the UK. That was just so good.
Yes, well, yeah, the banking system is we may get Viking to rant for 25 minutes, so I'll hold off because he has explained it where it's just completely stuffed. The Fed is, but it's. The global narrative is trying to still hold on control, and it could collapse in that respect at any point. But the thing is, you go outside, birds are tweeting and the sun's fine. These are just ideas, and we know there are so many solutions already out there.
Yeah, we need some better ones.
Yeah, but there's a small group of people that like people talking about economic stuff in 3 to 4 months. It's like, yeah, but it's at any point people could rise up in a peaceful way and say, end the Fed as an example, and we can change it.
So what's just from anyone in the US over there, what is the difference in the Fed? Because the Fed structure changed about a month ago, didn't it? Is there any change or any idea that has changed significantly enough to be good?
Wasn't it nationalized and Trump brought it into Treasury or something?
Yeah, I don't know what that means in the end.
Nationalized means it's government controlled, I think. Go ahead,
Right.
Viking.
No, well, the Fed, yes, again, the Fed is a deep state central bank that has nothing to do with the United States. It was brought into power in 1913. And basically, it's been subjugating us with debt ever since. Of course, the note even says good for debt. It's not a currency. There's no liquidity in the fiat currency at all and around the world. It's all debt. And so it has its corporate seat in Puerto Rico, its corporate office in Washington, D.C., which Washington, D.C. itself is not even part of the United States. So it's Washington is it's United States of America Incorporated. So what Trump's trying to do is break that entire deep state structure. So the first step he's doing is incorporating the Fed back into the Treasury. So so it's no longer an independent bank, but he'll have control over the Fed. So the next step is to do away with the slavery income tax, which he's talking about, to create a liquidity. So that's 30% of our money now that we'll be able to then be able to spend. See, in order for a nation to be rich, it has to have liquidity, transparency, and currency, the flow of money.
Yeah.
But what's been happening here is we've been stifled in minimum wage and debt and the credit cards with its interest of being double digit has kept everybody more or less complacent. So the next step here is then spend as much fiat currency as you can. I mean, spend trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars, knowing that in 6 months to a year, he can basically wipe out all fiat currency, all debt. It's going to be like a whole debt restructuring of the geo-economic structure around the world, where all fiat currencies that are not backed by any assets are going to be null and void, and we're going to go to what's known as an asset-backed currency. So there's going to be a new United States Treasury note that's going to be gold-backed, Basel III compliant, which is 40% gold, and then the rest of it has to be industry, agriculture, manufacturing, in-ground resources, luxury items. This is how we're now going to be able to tell the worth of a country's currency. The IMF is broke. Everybody, it's deteriorating so quickly here. It's just mind-boggling how fast this fiat central banking system is actually imploding in on itself. So it has to be done in stages. You just can't say tomorrow we're going to dissolve this and dissolve our income tax and bring in. It has to happen over time. Yep. And during that time span, he needs to spend as much money as he can to build the infrastructure of this nation.
Do you see it as a positive thing overall? First step to change. I haven't a lot of people tried to make this change, or is this more of a fractional change to get it moving kind of thing?
Well, look what happened to JFK. He tried to put it back on silverback note, and of course they took him out, because that wasn't. Then of course in '71, then Nixon took us off the gold standard and put us on the petrodollar. Well, now the petrodollar is actually collapsing, so the value of the U.S. dollar is going to absolutely lose its face around the world. I mean, it's spiraling down fast, man. The tail's burning.
Still doing pretty good right now, isn't it?
It's doing good because the confidence, because everybody in the world is collapsing. We still have probably the strongest economy, only because of our just strength and confidence. It's not. I mean, when you look at it, what backs us right now is probably our agriculture and our weapons and our gun cells and jets and whatnot. But I mean, it really doesn't have the confidence is eroding because people like Iran and that's what Libya was going to go gold back and start trading in dollars. But that's why we took out that regime. The whole thing with the dollar versus the yen versus the ruble is starting to fall apart. I mean, it's doing pretty good, but I'm not sure what that means in the times that we're at.
On the street level, the reason that the system is still working economically is the faith of the people, because people believe it's a dollar. That's the only reason that's what's backing it, basically, is because everyone believes that a dollar is worth a dollar. One way of seeing how bad things are is you follow inflation. Now, I could be incorrect, but before the Civil War in the United States, I think it was Andrew Jackson who was president. He kicked out the central bank, and America had prosperity for 50 years, and there was hardly any inflation, and so the worth of the dollar roughly stayed the same. Now, when the Fed came into existence in 1913. They started to defractionalize the dollar, and that's where you get inflation, and they're trying to grow the economy, and it's a very narrow point of view. The movie Zeitgeist, I have mentioned this a couple of times over the last couple of weeks. The movie Zeitgeist pointed out that $1 in 2007 compared to $1 in 1913. For $1 in 1913, you needed $127 in 2007 for the same same. Well, because they've just taken it and defractionalized it, and that's why bread used to be 5 cents a loaf, and now it's up to $2. And it's all part of about economic growth, and look what we're doing, and then you get the debt and you have to pay it off, and then you have inflation. That inflation moves the worth of the instead of actually growing, they're taking the $1, which I think is a unit of time originally, and they've just keep filing it back. And so now $1 back then. So billionaires in the 19 teens are like trillionaires now because of it's part of the weaponization and the Babylon money system.
I was going to say slavery.
As well, yeah. But yeah, to get the same value of 127, and that was 13 years ago. So who knows what it's worth now?
I remember when chalk buds used to be half a cent, so you need to buy two. Oh, heady days.
Yeah, and like if you get rid of the central banks, prices would drop instantly because all that debt's gone. And like we are changing the system, we're changing systems. We're not changing the system. The system does work. It just doesn't work for us. And the system that they put forward, they say it should work for us, but it's completely corrupt and it doesn't work. Viking.
Well, no. So when the fiat currency finally does crash and burn, and I've been saying this now for a year, it has to crash and burn. This is part of the whole disclosure of the deep state, because that's their piggy bank, right? Is the central banking system around the world.
Yeah.
There's going to be a debt jubilee. They're going to wipe out. They have to, because debt. The debt of this planet is into the quadrillions. The toxic derivatives that these banks are carrying are just unfathomable, and they should have been bankrupt.
They should have been bailed out.
No. So what's happening here is there has to be in order for us to go over to a asset-backed Basel III compliant currency worldwide, there will be a debt relief, and I mean a debt relief. All debt will be wiped out. They did this in Iceland when the whole Panama hacking job was done, and they exposed that their president and bankers were obfuscating billions of dollars, and they arrested everybody, and they did a debt relief. And so it can and will happen.
I was gonna ask if you knew of any precedents like that happening around the world.
Yeah. So I'm saying months, not years, months, and we're gonna see this in months.
Yeah, there's a great documentary. I can't remember what it's called now, but Matt Damon actually narrates it, and it's just worth seeing for how gorgeous Iceland is. And the movie goes through how different countries reacted to the global financial crisis. You had the Lehman Brothers collapse. I think that was like a sacrificial lamb, so they could sort of go, look, they took most of the brunt of it. Then you had the bailouts, where thousands of, trillions of billions of dollars given to the banks because they're too big to fail for whatever that reason is. But in Iceland, it's like, we put our bankers into jail. And we got rid of our government.
Sunshine seeing those.
Yeah, and so for a while there, Iceland was leading the charge of trying to be nice to their people, because in a way, the wealth of a nation is actually its people, because they do things and they create things and they build things. Like Cortek, I'm not sure if you know the history of taxation in Australia. We didn't really, like when we became a federation, I don't think there was hardly any taxes at all, but everything got built. You had the state-run, the Commonwealth Bank, which was owned by the government, which is owned by the people. They used to lend money for like 5%, or the 0.5%, or even with no percent, and you paid back. And that's how the Snowy Mountain scheme was built, and all that type of stuff. Then Menzies, who was a massive Queen fan, the actual Queen, not the band, because the band, because the band formed 6 years later. He got some. He was duped, or he willingly got loans from the IMF, and part of that deal was actually to put a GST into the country, and that's why the GST popped up in '88, and then it came in about 10 or 12 years later, where it just showed that John Howard said, there'll never be a GST, where he said in the late 80s, and then in the late 90s, like, he's been trying to get a GST in for his entire political career. And so,
the eyebrow.
this is what I think's the right thing to do. Sure. And so that's the element of the IMF. I haven't read it, but I really should read it. The Confessions of an Economic Hitman, where they give all these toxic loans at 30%, and when a country can't actually pay it off, they start giving assets, and that's how big companies start doing. Look at Halliburton with Iraq. And everything else like that, and so it's economic warfare. The reason that Gough Whitlam, one reason why Gough Whitlam was fired, which is very Australian, by the way, he was fired from being a prime minister. The only time that a governor general sacked the government, instead of changing the constitution, they just stopped teaching the Constitution in schools, because you don't want an aware populace. They'll figure out they've been screwed. That he didn't want to work with the central banks and was trying to find funding from somewhere else, and he kept getting knocked back. And there's elements that was actually a coup, because the CIA were working to get rid of Gough because he went to China. And this is mid-70s. Go ahead, Viking.
Well, so the IMF is actually it's like the mafia loaning money, and then they have a vig, and so these countries will take a loan for, like, for example, Libya, or these what they call emerging markets. Emerging markets are third world nations that are struggling to survive. But what they do is they'll replace the government, or they'll topple the government, and then they'll take on this IMF loan, and they'll hedge it against their asset, which is usually in-ground resources. And then they put in the paramilitary government, and they get a $20 billion loan, and only $500 million will go into infrastructure. The rest is obfuscated into the deep state, and then they basically bring the country to its knees. And it's just been done time and time and time again. It's actually been done here in the United States, where we've had the same situation done with the IRS, with the Federal Reserve. Is just another form of just this subjugate slavery.
Yeah, Africa's a perfect.
Go
ahead.
Like that's kind of like getting one of Monty's ex-roommates and just loading him up on a whole bunch of alcohol, and then saying, "Yeah, you're okay." Right?
It's exactly like that.
Yes. Well, if I can use it, look at the world. Like South America has been fiddled with, technical term. Africa's had the crap kicked out of it for years, like for centuries. You think with so many riches and resources, they should be one of the leaders on the planet, but they're classed as third world countries.
What riches? I've been there. There's no riches in Africa.
Well, not anymore.
Zimbabwe has the highest. The in-ground resources in Africa. Their currency could become the African currency. They have diamonds and gold and lithium and uranium, and it's just laden with assets.
Since we have a number of people here, how many people on this call right now think that diamonds are rare?
No, that's false scarcity. That's also part of this scam as well.
I've seen blood.
Damn you, Monty.
Damn you. I think through all this, I mean, something that's shown us is that I think we need to be super wary of adjectives in advertising anyway, like winners, pokey lounges, and signs like that. But also, I think it seems every single time a body pops up with its name, international or world or anything that's trying to be overarching like this, it is just corrupt from the get-go, it seems. I don't know.
It's been like that for over a century.
Well, even Planned Parenthood was a front for child trafficking here in the United States,
Yeah.
And Mother Teresa was one of the largest traffickers of India. She was completely corrupt to the core.
Amazing.
Yeah, and so when this information comes out, it's going to freak everyone out. John, go ahead.
Interestingly enough, I guess this is shameless plugs for other people's podcast. If you've ever heard of Jocko, the big military guy that does a podcast on YouTube, he started something called The Thread. So basically, it's the same podcast more or less, but it's in a four part thing now. And I find it very interesting. Again, we go back to timing on all this. just going through those 4 videos, really interesting that he chose now to actually tell
Which
a little
videos?
bit of truth. You can look it up. Just look up Jocko, and then it's called The Thread, like a
What were
piece
the
of
what were
thread.
the videos about there?
Well, basically, it's a little bit of military history and what actually happened
Okay.
from someone who went to war.
Yeah.
And there's no hearsay. Like, there's just a lot of stuff. Ramadi, bioweapons, nuclear weapons, this, that, the other thing. Who said this? Who said that? Interesting podcast if you're looking for a little bit of clarity, especially if you're a civilian.
Yeah.
That has no idea what actually went on over there.
Yeah. It seems the truth's rarely written down. Go on.
Well, at the moment, it is the 250th anniversary. I think, today, the 29th, of Captain Cook landing at Botany Bay on the east coast of Australia. And I've seen a couple of articles on the ABC website, the website where the Aboriginals, through their acknowledge. So there's a different perception of what actually happened, where a couple of Aboriginals were shot at. But the Aboriginals saying, one was actually hit. And we were taught, like, Captain Cook, but he was a lieutenant. He was actually a captain of a ship at the time, but his rank was Lieutenant James Cook. And this is after, I think, the French, the Spanish, and maybe the Dutch, the Spanish, and maybe the French were also here as well. Like, the Dutch found the west coast of Australia nearly 200 years earlier, but it was a desert with about one small bush, and thought, this is crap, we're going home.
Yeah.
But because the English came here and they opened a penal colony, and it's caused schism, because it's like, Aboriginal people were referred to as fauna till 1967, where they're just animals.
Yeah.
It took a public referendum to change it, not the government. It's like, well, ask the people. These are people too. Oh, okay then. And there's still no treaty, where that's caused arguments. We just had Anzac Day, which is our Veterans Day, and they still won't acknowledge the frontier wars, which was the redcoats against the Aboriginals, and they apparently Australia just existed from 1901, and it just happened to all these black people we hear, and which is fine, because they calling them black, because they refer to themselves as black fellas, and they would call Cortek and I white fellas, and there's no negativity connotation. It's just the language they use, and they're lovely people.
Youths.
Yeah, they're lovely people if you're not kicking the shit out of them. Well, yeah, I mean, still the massacres were still happening a century ago. After the First World War, they were still massacring, because people they would take Aboriginal girls and try and outbreed them, because they still thought they were subhuman. That's the mentality of some of these.
That was so wrong.
Yeah. It's fascinating, like, just across the world, shamanism's been quashed, as well as the natives, where they thought, oh, we're better, we invented the wheel. You also brought smallpox and syphilis, you prick. The Aboriginals never really had alcohol, and that's been a major problem with them for the last 250 years, because their physical makeup wasn't designed to actually have alcohol.
Seemed like there was a systematic destruction of everyone that might act like a mentor that's not the state. Shamans, religious, New Age, all this stuff.
And I maintain that there should be a treaty, because that's what you do after you have a war. You have a treaty and everything else like that. I've had people, I wasn't there. It's like, yeah, but you're still benefiting from a system that was created from that. Also, weird idea. You have a treaty. Everyone's happy with it. It may take a decade.
Yeah.
Then you treat the Aboriginals as equals, and then we can all move on, instead of this constant, like, people are still arguing over Australia Day, which is the 26th of January, which is when the First Fleet turned up, which colonised New South Wales at the time. From the Aboriginal point of view, some of them believe it's Survival Day or Invasion Day.
Invasion Day, yeah.
Yeah, technically that's correct. However, let's have a treaty, and I think it should be the third Thursday in January. That way, it's nowhere near the 26th, but we still have a long weekend. But yeah,
as long as we don't lose a long weekend, I'm fine.
Yeah, but now we're dealing with egos and crap like that, and the Queen and all that stuff, where you have to point out, like, well, things did happen, but if you don't acknowledge them, that's why I think there's a major spiritual wound in the country, because this Cortek, you totally understand it because you live here. You don't control the country. The country actually absorbs you, and you become part of the country, and that's why there's still a little bit of animosities. I would say same with Native Americans, Native Canadians. Yep. Everything else, like, at least, but they broke their treaties. Yeah, Maoris actually got a treaty because they kicked the living crap out of the redcoats.
Yeah, they never got defeated. That's why they have a sense of pride, like the French as well, because they've set a precedent themselves.
And the people, I think, just through interaction, bloodlines, I think everybody in New Zealand maybe a quarter Maori anyway, because they're all interconnected. And I'm sure there are issues because people are stupid. But from my understanding, most of the country, they embrace that culture, and like the All Blacks do their haka to scare the crap out.
There's a sense of respect there,
Yeah.
You have to respect something that you can't beat, I guess, whether it's forced respect, but it's a lovely thing.
Yeah. Also, Maoris are lovely people till you upset them. Don't upset them, because they once were warriors, and they used to have just like a thick walking stick, and they beat the British. They also taught the British trench warfare, because that's where the idea came from, because they would have trenches. But yeah, they were up to get. True? If not, till someone points out, no. But you got huge Maori warriors with pride and their love of their country and their tribe, and very family orientated as well.
Thanks, woman.
Yeah, well, there are the movies pointing out that they're probably being westernized. There you go. Yep, but they won against muskets with just a very strong stick, because they were very efficient with it. They kicked the living crap out of it.
They probably just did the haka and they got back in their boats.
Well, originally they probably did, because it's like, these are savages that are insane, and that was that elitism where, like, oh yes, Britannia rules the waves. These are all savages, and then 200 years later we totally destroyed the country because we have no idea how to look after it. Yeah, you know what I'm saying. Yeah, that's right, brother. Yeah, and let's not start that whole Melbourne Sydney crap, because that's a distract. That's how we got Canberra. I think we've lost the three Australians listening are going, yes, he's right. Everyone else is like, they've gone local. I have no idea what they're talking about.
Canberra's the bastard, baby.
Oh, we're at the end of the show. I'm glad I looked at the clock. Thank you, ball boys. Thank you. That was Planet Collingwood. We shall return in 6 days and 22 hours. Very quickly, just a passing thought. Viking, would you like to promote your show and then just leave the listeners with a pearl of wisdom or a good scone recipe or something? Or...
Well, yeah, we there's three of us that do a show called the Galactic Interstellar Council, Down the Rabbit Hole Galactic Perspective. It's Fridays at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Studio A. This week we'll be going into the carbon and crystalline structure of the body as it transits into this new paradigm. Just again, one of the main things is just be very vigilant of your reactive mind, because if you're acting, it's because there's something there that's still triggering you, and there's work to be done to uncover that splinter that's creating the festering of that situation. That's what life is all about, is tracking down, doing your due diligence, being vigilant in your action.
John, are you still here?
I think he whipped out.
Oh, okay. Well, prophetic words from John Z, as they say in Canada's Ed. Cortek.
I don't know, what can we do? I mean, I guess there's, in a lot of this we're looking at ourselves. I guess take the time to call someone you haven't spoken to in a while. Make sure they're okay.
Find your passion. Well, maybe not the passion that you're talking, but you find your passion. Connect with friends and family. Stay in the now, one day at a time, as they say in A&A. Be aware. Don't allow the negative to drag you down. Do no harm, but take no shit. Basically, that's where I'm from. You know, love everything, respect everybody, do no harm, but don't take any crap.
Like that one, lad.
Yeah. That was Planet Collingwood. This is Revolution Radio. In 2 hours' time, Kelsey Sweet will be back with another show of Cultivating Consciousness. If you enjoyed the last 2 hours, please go to the website and donate what you can. We love you all from afar because, it's the Me Too era and lockdown. So I'm just, I'll wave. Thank you all. Enjoy. Stay healthy. And in the great words of John Lennon, in the end, it's going to be all right. If it's not all right, it's not the end. We'll see you soon. Goodbye.